Greetings, this is Tex Masson from thctrust.org. In this particular video, I'm going to read through a file that I've written, and in it we are going to discuss how to remove negative and derogatory information from your credit file. I'm going to show you a couple of different angles to approach it, and particularly what we are focusing on is collection accounts, because in my opinion they are about the easiest thing to remove. So I'm going to give you a methodology, and hopefully you will be able to apply this and have some success. Now, again, I'm not really freestyling this video. I'm just reading it. I spend a lot of time putting together written lectures for you to read, and so that you can, I choose the words that I use very carefully so that you can understand and be able to apply. But I am also aware that a lot of people are busy and they don't have time to read, or maybe they read slow, like myself. I'm a very slow reader. So I've made this audio file so that you can listen to it and maybe absorb the information a different way. But it's very important that you also click and download this PDF, especially if you're one of the premium members, because there's certain things in this PDF that I'm reading that are hot links that'll give you additional information, valuable information, such as in different areas of this discussion, I'll talk about certain type of letters that you would send to a company to make sure that they remove information or something. And when I speak about that letter, you will be able to click on it and actually download that letter, so you'll have a copy of it yourself. There's a particular portion in this document where I'm talking about how you would communicate with a debt collector when you're on the phone with them. And in that particular session, you can actually click on the document and you'll hear a live conversation that I was having with the debt collector in regard to settling an issue. So then you kind of, it's more of a teaching tool. This is a very interactive document. So I'm going to read through it. And again, I encourage you to download it. How do you do that? You visit www.thctrust.org and you create an account. If you don't have an account, you absolutely must create an account. And then when you log in, all these resources will be available. Now, this version of the document, the restricted version that I'm reading to you right here, is free. But there's some features that may be locked in the document. For example, you can download the template letters that I discussed, but they'll be in PDF format and you really won't be able to copy them. I put a lock on the PDF so that you can't copy them, because I'm doing that to encourage you to join the premium subscription group, because it's only $16 a month, and you'll have the same letters except for they'll be in the Word document format, so you can just plug in your information and use them as necessary to correct and remove derogatory and negative collection accounts from your credit report. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and read the document, and maybe I'll stop in a few places and expound, but I think everything is real written and self-explanatory, so I think you'll enjoy this. By the way, one other thing, please do me a favor. Forward this PDF file. If you receive it in email or if you go to the site and download it, forward it to someone else, because by doing that, and you can even you can post this video on your site, or I post other people's videos on my site that's very relevant to the information that we're all trying to obtain. So feel free to share this knowledge also, and that way it's another area, another way that you can help us grow, because I really have some other great things that I'm not going to talk about right now, but as I get them prepared, you'll start seeing them on the website. So I really need to be freed up so I can pursue these endeavors, and we'll all benefit from them. But anyways, here we go. So I put this particular lecture together to save you time and to provide you with exactly what you need to know regarding the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act and the Fair Credit Reporting Act, so that you can quickly and efficiently remove negative and derogatory items from your credit file. Knowledge is power, but it is worth less when we do not know how to apply it. Doesn't it annoy you when you know someone is breaking the law, but you do not know what to say or who to escalate to or what you can do to enforce compliance? My focus with this lecture and the following series of lectures is to give you the information, the templates, and the understanding so that you can implement a sound strategy toward fixing your credit with knowledge of how to apply your remedy and how to escalate and enforce your remedy. The first thing you should do is read the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, and there's a hot link in this document so that you can actually download it when you get to that point. You need to understand it on a practical level so that you can rightfully apply it to remedy your situation. One important thing to note is that the FDCPA, which stands for the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, is referred to as 15 U.S.C. 1692. That is the codification. And it's also referred to as Public Law 95-109, 91 Stat 874. So a lot of times things that's codified in the United States Code, there will also be a corresponding public law. And I think that has something to do with how we have a de jure government as well as a democracy. So we have a republic and a democracy. Usually the public law is kind of on the de jure side and the codification is on the democracy side. But for the focus of what we're doing, cleaning and correcting our credit report, you could use any of these. You can use the U.S. Code version or the Public Law 95-109, 91 Stat 874. They both say the same thing. For example, you will find that 15 U.S.C. 1692D, which is the United States Code version, is essentially the same thing as Public Law 95-109, 901 Statute 874, Section 806. This will be the case with most acts, because when we talk about acts, we're talking about the public law. Like say, for example, the Coinage Act or the Civil Rights Act. Usually those are the public laws. There will be a public law version and a codified United States Code version. Okay. Throughout this lecture, I will note the common violations that collection agencies commit, and I'll reference the specific section of the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act so that you can refer to it directly and know it for yourself. When it comes to the strategy of removing a collection account, I like to call the debt collector on the telephone so that I can create a record of the violations for use throughout my process. This is not necessary, but if you want to be proficient at removing negative items from multiple angles and approaches, then the more comfortable you become with dealing with the debt collectors and credit bureaus in real time, the quicker and more efficient you will be at resolving matters. There are some violations that I know they're going to commit, so I prepare a list of about 10 to 15 questions that I'm going to ask them. And by the way, when you see this in the document, the 10 to 15 questions, you can actually click that hyperlink and you're going to see some of the questions that I ask them. And my questions are there. Well, let me read this and then I'll go back to that. Let's see, there are some violations that I know they're going to commit, so I prepare a list of about 10 to 15 questions that I am going to ask them so that I can make a precise record of their misrepresentations, which will prove helpful in having the collection account deleted from my credit file. Foremost, you must identify who you spoke to and the time and the date that you spoke to them. So, and as you read the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act and you begin to understand that along with the Fair Credit Reporting Act, you're going to see why this list of questions, I have 10 to 15 of them, but you can add more. You're going to see why they're so important because you're going to understand that, for one, the debt collector has to answer your information. He has to answer your questions and provide you with the information because he's reporting on you. And you're going to find out that when you ask very specific questions, you're going to put them in a box because if they answer the questions truthfully, then they're going to make an admission that really they don't have any authority to be reporting this information or to be damaging you by putting this on your credit. So they're not going to really want to answer truthfully. But if they don't answer truthfully, you're going to be able to pinpoint them in real time because making misleading and false statements is a violation of the FDCPA. And you can call them right out on it. And usually what you'll find is they get real nervous and they try to rush to get off the phone with you. And the whole tone of the conversation changes. We're usually used to being on the offensive and things like that. But part of what I'm trying to show you in this lecture is how to get off that. Excuse me, I said we're used to being on the offensive. We're actually used to being on the defensive. But I'm going to show you how to get off that defensive and really go on the offensive, because actually they don't have the authority, nor do they really have the proper, I guess we'll say, standing, for lack of a better term, to be using your information and reporting negatively against you the way that they are. Let me go ahead and click this list of questions. I'll tell you what some of them say. One is, where did you get my confidential information from? Right? Because, you know, and typically they get the information because they purchase it. Not because they bought an account, as they're going to try to mislead you to believe, but really because they just purchased your information. And there's some privacy concerns there. I ask them, are you aware of your obligations under the Fair Debt Collections Practice, or the Fair Credit Reporting Act? I ask them that, and the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act. You know, of course they're going to say yes, and if not, you say, well, you need to get somebody that is, but they're debt collectors, so they should be. And that's kind of really reeling them in, because by the time you finish these questions, they are going to make some violations. I can assure you that. They always do, in my experience. There's some other things on here. I ask them, what is the complete number on the account that you're reporting open in my file? Usually I ask that because when you log in and review your credit report online, you can only see some of the account numbers. And you really want the whole account number, which should be necessary when you get to getting these items off your credit file. On that note, I want to also mention this. Before you even get started, when you're getting ready to start removing these negative items off your credit profile, I recommend you get a credit report from all 3 of the major credit bureaus. And the best product that I found to this point, which is thanks to Ron from the Redress Commission, the Legal Redress Commission, is that you should Google Equifax Advantage. It costs $4.95 for the first month, and they give you your Experian, TransUnion, and your Equifax credit files with all of the information, all the inquiries, positive, negative accounts, and they also give you your credit scores, and it's only $4.95 for the first month, and then they go up to $17 the second month. So I really think, hands down, that's the best all around. Wow, and there's so much I can say on this. Man, this video can really get long. I'm already seeing that now, because something else I wanted to kind of hip you to. Be very careful and cautious when you order your credit files, because these individuals at all times are trying to quote unquote validate or verify debts to be true in your account. So even before you even get to the point of trying to dispute or demand for validation, they're already trying to, at some level, use what you say against you. So I'll give you an example. When I tried to pull my credit file the last time, I was being told that they were telling me that, well, because they couldn't verify my information online, I had to call in. And then in order to verify my information, they started to ask me about, well, you have a bank of whatever account, and asking me about a derogatory account in particular. You have a bank of such and such account. Can you tell me what the balance was? And they're trying to use this information to verify that I am who I say I am. So I say, with all due respect, I can neither confirm nor deny, what you're asking me, because many of the things that you're asking me to verify who I am may be items that's subject to dispute. So from my understanding, to verify who I am, you just need my name. You may need an address. I can present you a copy of an ID. I've told you what my social security card is. What I'm saying is, I don't get in to start to try to verify who I am by saying what is or isn't in my credit file, because they're taking notes on that, and trust me, they will use it against you. And if that's something you need to dispute, but you're telling them what revolving balances are, then at some level you're confirming, and that's what verification is all about, having another party confirm something to be true. So just keep that in mind. And in worst case scenario, if you can't get it verified over the phone, they're just going to ask you to fax in a copy of an ID and a social security card or something like that. It might take you a little bit more time, but it's better to get it done without doing anything that's going to affect you adversely. And also, something I like to do is, if I'm ever going to fax a copy of my social security card or my ID or whatever, I'm blacking out certain numbers. Maybe some of it, because I don't want to give them any information of mine to be using against me. But anyways, let me get back on point. Some of the other questions I ask them is, what is the account number, and what date did you purchase this account from the original creditor? Now, don't get wrapped up in the fact that they tell you, "Oh, we purchased the account." Don't get off track. There's more information that you need to obtain. Don't argue with them over little small points. It's something I had to learn, because you're really calling with an objective, right? Do you have a contract with me? That's one of the questions. And they may say, "Well, we don't need to have a contract with you." Just note it, right? They're wrong in some of the things that they're saying. I ask them, are you reporting taxes on this account? You do understand that the original account and this record account are two separate issues, right? I let them know that. And why do I say that? Because a collection company, every time that I have seen it, I've never seen them use the same account as the original account. And although they don't like to admit it, they always open up a new account. The collection account is not the same as the original account. And we'll be talking about more about that later. Let's see. Here's a good question. Who are you communicating with? Are you communicating with any third parties in regard to this account or to this alleged debt outside of myself, right? Why? Because the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act does not give them any authority to communicate with any third parties about the debt. So that's one that you got to kind of scratch your head and wonder, well, if that's the case, how are they so-called verifying this information? And that's something else that we would touch on. Man, I'm telling you, I'm about to split your head wide open with this information when we get through this. And you're going to be like, wow, it's really powerful. It's like everything else. We have to start reading these things, and we can't just read over it real fast thinking we understand what things are. We have to really digest it and break it down and let it sink in and look at these sentences, because they're instructions. They're instructions of what these so-called debt collectors and credit reporters and all of that have to do. So we have to look at it almost like a mathematical code and say, what does this equal? What does this bind them to? And wow, you're going to feel very much empowered. Let me read about two more of these, and then I'll get back to the lecture at hand. Is the original creditor currently communicating with you regarding the accuracy or delinquency of this account? It's another good question. What day was this other account, or we could say, what day was the original account charged off by the original creditor? And when you say these things, you can say, and by the way, I'm neither confirming nor denying the accuracy of this information. I'm just asking questions because I need this information for my records, and I'm entitled to it because I'm being damaged by this information that you're reporting. So don't be afraid to ask for information about the original creditors and things like that, because you're not confirming that anything is true, especially if you let them know that ahead of time. And they may start asking you questions, and we're going to discuss that too, because really you don't have to answer any of their questions, but they are forced to answer all of yours, and that's the beauty of it. That's the real beauty of it. But let me get back to the lecture, and I think I'm going to have to break this up in parts because I see this is getting long. Okay, so I'll start where I left off. Okay, so there are some violations that I know they're going to commit. So I prepare a list of about 10 to 15 questions that I'm going to ask them so that I can make a precise record of their misrepresentations. And remember, because misrepresentations is a violation of the FDCPA, which will prove helpful in having the collection account deleted from your credit profile. Foremost, you must identify who you spoke to and the time and the date that you spoke to the individual. Right. So while you're asking these questions, man, trust me on this. I used to try to and I can do it a little bit, but I used to try to talk to them and take notes on my computer. You would really do yourself some justice if you get a notepad. And as you ask them these questions, you might have your questions or your angle that you're going to go on your computer, but pause, take your time. Who am I speaking with? They give you the name, write their name down. Do you have an employee ID number or something that you can provide me with? So they give that to you, write it down. When you ask them a question, write down their response, because Everything they say can and you will use it against them. Remember, you will be a little nervous at first, but by the time you get to your third call, you will be a professional. When you are dealing with debt collectors, it is important for you to know that they do not have any first-hand knowledge as to whether or not the debt is legitimate. They are trained to gauge your responses to validate their collection efforts. The only thing they know about you is typically your name, your address, your social security number, your telephone number, and other information that they purchased from another company that charged off a debt. Therefore, you should approach the telephone call providing no acknowledgement whatsoever that the debt they are trying to collect is valid. When they try to question you about it, you must remember that you are not obligated to answer any of their questions or to prove anything to them. They are only required to answer yours. The way you communicate this over the call is by informing the debt collector that you will not be discussing confidential matters without them, you will not be discussing confidential matters without them providing a power of attorney that they represent the alleged original creditor. There are several things you can say. There are several things you can say actually. You can perhaps tell them that you believe you have been a victim of identity theft, and for that reason you are not giving any information about anything until you consult with your attorney. But all that being said, you still have a right to know what they are reporting on you. And actually, I'm going to put a little note right here because there's a law from the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau that you can actually quote to them. It's an act, and you can say, hey, you have to give me any information that you're reporting on me that I ask about. So it's a lot of firepower there. There was something else I wanted to mention with this. Oh, yes. So I hope you understood what I was pointing out. So we go in there, and in part of our mind, we're kind of like trying not to incriminate ourselves because we have this backwards way of thinking, and I'll deal with that maybe later, because we keep thinking that we are liable on something because we had a credit card or whatever. Many of us don't really understand how the finances work. A lot of us do because we've been studying this for a long time. So we come in there thinking we're liable on something, and they're trained to gauge your response. See, I found when you come in there completely, without confirming anything for them, letting them know that they are damaging you and injuring you, and they don't have any first-hand knowledge of this stuff that they're reporting, sometimes they will lead you right in the right direction because they're not getting the usual vibe that they get from somebody that's trying to be, or somebody that's trying to kind of get out of paying something, or someone that's kind of nervous or trying to argue and be combative. They really don't know anything. But again, they're trained to gauge your response. So that's something to think about. How do I know if a debt collector is legitimate? I put a link in this PDF. So it's, and that's like a little cookie cutter thing. It doesn't even really matter. But I put that in there because it lets you, everything that you have to push back makes them less inclined to pursue trying, especially collection agencies, makes them less inclined to try to deal with your information because you're putting a workload on them, having to verify the debt, having to validate the debt, having to provide proof of claim. And then there's a couple of other things that you can do, which is look up the company on their Secretary of State's website to see if they are properly registered and all their information is up to date. Because if not, that's another violation that doesn't necessarily have to do with the FDCPA. And you can report them to the Attorney General of their state or the Secretary of State. The simplest way to find out the proper recording is go Google their corporate laws of the state. Just look up, the laws about corporations on the state, and it's going to tell you what they're required to do and what they're going to be required to have. And you can file that complaint, like I said, with the Secretary of State or the Attorney General. If they're out of compliance, which a lot of times you're going to find a lot of debt collectors are out of compliance. Okay, so now let's talk about calling the debt collector, right? Have a list of questions ready, but also have your list of responses to any potential question they can ask you. Be creative and firm in your responses. Check out the creative responses, questions, and statements that I use when I communicate with them. And these are just some samples. You can be more creative than this. So they may say, do you have a loan with XIZ company, or did you ever have a loan with such and such company? And then I say, on what basis are you asking me this question? Do you represent XYZ company? For privacy reasons, I cannot provide you with any personal information, right? Or why are you collecting information, and what are you going to do with it? You haven't told me who gave you my name, my social security number, and I believe that you've retrieved my information unlawfully. So you can say, look, I'm really not inclined to give you my information because I've already believe I've been a victim of identity theft, and now you're just digging for more information. Do you have the legal authority to represent this company that you're collecting a debt on behalf of? And they're going to always tell you, no, we don't have the legal authority. Then I say, well, with all due respect, unless I see a power of attorney, I don't feel that you're qualified for me to discuss any of my particular financial information or any business that I may or may not have done. That's one angle. You can also, if they're really pushing you to answer something, like there you say, am I legally required to give you this information? If so, I prefer that you answer my questions, and I'll refrain from answering your questions. Straight, direct, and to the point. Because once you start talking, use that term legal. Am I legally required to give you this information? Oh, they don't want to go there with you. They're going to back down quick. And then say, if so, then I prefer that you answer my questions because you have to legally, and I'll refrain from answering your questions. I'm only calling to get the information I need to get this resolved. That's it. I'm not calling to help you collect the debt. Anyways, let's see. Here's another one. I can neither confirm or deny that. I can either confirm or deny that at this stage in our communications because you are not my legal representative, and you've already confirmed to me that you do not have the legal authority to represent the creditor. You see? Or here's the one that they like to do. They really like, you did take a loan out with ABC Company, and you did agree to pay ABC Company. You were liable, blah, blah, blah. When they start making positive statements without even asking you, like they know, then you could say, are you making a legal determination? Do you have firsthand knowledge of what you are accusing me of? Because I'm being injured. Are you 100% certain that you are not making false statements? Because making a false statement is a violation of the FDCPA. And remember, all the time, take your time, have your ink pen, and be writing down their responses. Know exactly who you spoke to and the time that you spoke to them. They have to identify themselves to you according to the FDCPA. And as we get towards the bottom of this lecture, I will show you specifically where all these things are that says they have to identify themselves to you. They can't make certain false representations, because when you really know exactly where all these statutes are, you kind of put them in a box so quick because you ask them a question that you already know the answer to. You just want them to give the admission on the record. As soon as they try to give you a roundabout answer to avoid giving you the truth and the direct answer, you hit them with that, you're not allowed to make false, misleading, or misrepresenting statements. That's a violation of the FDCPA. And they're supposed to be fined $1,000. And there's more to it than that, but it's not $1,000 per violation like a lot of people say. If you file an act in federal court for violations of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the total, even if they made 3, 4, 5 violations, you can collect $1,000 totally, and attorney's fees and things like that. So you can bring each one individually, but there's a much more tougher way to go, and that is where this is ultimately going to. In this series of lectures, this one talks about removing the collection accounts, and I'm just giving you the background. We even haven't really talked about how you get them off, but we're getting there. And that's the first part. After this, there will be another lecture later on where we talk about how to take negative and derogatory information, such as, say, an account with a high credit rating that has some delinquencies, and how you can reverse it and get that thing to reflect positively and actually boost and help your score. So, there's sometimes we don't want to remove information. And then on the last leg of this, which will probably be a third video coming down, we're going to talk about having this template lawsuit ready to go, so that push comes to shove, if they really want to play hardball, which I don't even think many of us are even going to have to worry about this, because it is pretty easy to fix credit. You're going to find out. Then you'll be able to slap them with that notice, demand, and intent to sue letter, which is probably going to make them back down. And if they don't, bang, We'll go ahead and take them to court and collect a little change right quick, hopefully. Anyways, let's see. They may say, you ask my personal information. Well, we got your information from the original creditor because the account was transferred to us for collections. That's one that they like to say. They like to use this word transferred because at some level it's misleading. It doesn't necessarily tell you whether they purchased it, whether they purchased the account, whether they purchased your information. There's a lot that the word transfer doesn't tell you. It's a very misleading word. They even use it in a mortgage game when it comes to assignments or holder in possession, the one that doesn't actually have the legal authority to foreclose on property. So they use this term transfer to obscure a lot of what happened. But anything that's deceptive and misleading and a false representation, it's a violation of the FDCPA. It's the violation of the FCRA. It's a violation of the Federal Trade Commissions Act, unfair deceptive acts and practices. So, and a lot of those references, that's why I said you got to go download this PDF. It's going to lead you to a lot of that information. But anyway, when they say we got your information from the original creditor company, they transferred it to us, I say, I did not consent to having my information. Can you provide me with a copy of the transaction or a contract you used to purchase my information so that I may validate or make a legal determination of its authenticity? You told me the original creditor charged the account off. This means the account was zeroed because when you charge account off, it must go to a zero balance first. So if you're telling me the account was first transferred for collections, that is deceptive, misleading, and a false statement. Because the truth is the account was purchased for value. I would like to see the transaction. Did original creditor company sell you my private information? And understand where I'm going with that. Because what always happens before the collection company opens up a new account on your credit file is original creditor company charged the account off. That means he zeroed out the balance. That means there's no more liability on his books, no more liability, off to a zero balance. There was nothing owed on the account. But then a couple months down the road, after the fact, some other company comes in and they don't really buy the account. They buy your information because they can't buy the account and make a credit or debit because the balance is zero. So they buy your information. No matter, they'll say they bought the account, but really they've done nothing more but brought your information. Then they use your information to open up a brand new account. And you'll see that's why the account number of the collection account is never the same as the original creditor account number. Now, if they were going to be honorable, yes, a creditor can send an account to collections. But what they're going to do is after 90 days, they're going to get it off their books so that they don't have a liability on their books, or so they can get paid. You can kind of say it that way too, because it's just so they can make the proper book entries. But after that, that information is delinquent and owed. After the creditor charges off an account, he's no longer reporting on that account. Listen to what I said closely. He is no longer reporting on that account. So after 90 days, nothing should be affecting you based on a charged off account. But what happens is a collection company buys your information and they use it to create a new account. And that's identity theft. If you take my information and you use it to open up an account without my consent, without my knowledge, then that's identity theft. Another reason why you have to be very careful when they start asking you these questions. Well, did you ever have an account with such and such and such and such? I can neither confirm nor deny that at this time. Do you have the legal authority? Can you show me proof of a power of attorney, or that you're the legal representative of such and such and such and such? Can you show me that I have a contract with you? Am I legally required to answer or confirm any of the information that you're asking me to confirm or deny for you? You see? But you have to prove what you're talking about. Now think about this. How are they going to prove it when an original so-called creditor that charged off an account can no longer report on that account? And the FDCPA says you can't talk to a third party about my account. So of course, if they say ABC Bank is telling us that, Who at ABC Bank is telling us that? Now there's a whole, there's more to get into on that. Let me keep going through this. Maybe I might have to break this down. And okay, here we go. This is a perfect time to do this. I'm going to let you listen to this call that I made with the debt collector. Now again, all I'm doing at this point is trying to get the omissions. I know they're going to say some violations of the FDCPA, so I just have some fun with it, and I'm listening to what they say so I can take a record of what they're saying, which you're going to see later on how I use those violations to assist in getting the information removed. So let's check this call out real quick.
This call may be monitored for quality assurance purposes. And now speaking with Sylvester Moore.
Who am I speaking with? Yes.
My name is Danelle.
How do I spell that?
D-A-N-E-L-L-E.
D-A-N-E-L-L-E. Are you also able to provide me with your last name?
My last initial is C. My ID number is 33808.
33808. Okay, I was transferred here. I'm sorry?
Yep. Can you just verify the last 4 of your social? And 8 Lane in Hinesville still current for you?
Well, that's my private information, and before I give any more private information, I need to know where you guys got my social security number and whatever other information you have about me in the first place.
We'll get to that. I just need to verify who I'm speaking with. So
you're speaking with Sylvester Moore, and I've provided you with my social security number and the address that you just quoted. I'm sorry?
Was that a previous mailing address?
On what basis are you asking me? I am Sylvester Moore with the social security number whose information is... Okay, yes, it's a previous address, if that will satisfy.
So we have a Navy Federal account. The account was opened in 9/2009.
Okay.
Navy Federal Auto Loan.
Okay.
And the account was charged off.
Ma'am, first off, are you a debt collector?
No, I am not, because you're in the dispute department.
Okay, well, so you don't have to give me any disclosure about this is an attempt to collect the debt. You're saying you're not required to do that.
I'm not because I'm not attempting to collect anything from you. I'm giving you the information regarding the account.
I didn't. Okay, well, let me ask my questions because I was already hung up by Philip Shore, which was in your Phoenix, Arizona office, and I keep getting transferred around. So I don't know if this is the right department I need to be speaking to or not, because at this point I haven't disputed anything. The reason for my call is I've looked at my credit report and I see an account here with Calvary Port. That account number is 17613-943. Do you work for Calvary Port?
Yes, I'm going through all the information for you.
Okay.
Let me do that, and I can give you what we have.
I have specific questions that I need the answers to. What date was this account opened? The account number that I just provided you, 17613-943. When
I was getting to that. If you just give me a second to talk, I can give you all the details on that, okay?
No, I'm asking.
The original account was opened.
Ma'am, I'm asking specific questions. You're talking about original account. I'm talking about what's in front of me on my credit file. Do you have a supervisor? Because you're not answering my questions, and this is what I got all day. People trying to tell me this, that, and the other. I have very specific questions of information I need that you're required to provide me by law because you're using my private, confidential information. So I want to know, when was account number 17613-943 with Calvary Port? You're alleging to have an account open with me. What day was that account opened?
The account was purchased 4/30 of 2012.
Okay. So wait. You purchased the.
I heard what you had to say.
No,
I'm going to give you all.
Ma'am, I'm asking the questions right now. Let me ask my questions, and then you can provide me. You said, what was that date? 4/30/2012. Was it 4/30/2012?
The account was sold to us and purchased 4/30 of 2012.
Sold to you by whom, and how much did you purchase it for?
The account was with Navy Federal Credit Union.
Okay, how much did you purchase this account for?
Sir, let me give you that information. You keep interrupting me. I'm trying to give that to you.
Yes, it's just a simple give me. it's a simple give me an amount. I'm not asking you for this other information because.
Okay,
May I speak to you?
I'm letting you speak.
Okay, well,
answer.
ma'am, because you're trying, because you're.
To me every time I try to tell you.
Yes, because you're telling me about stuff that I'm not. Well, first off, ma'am, do you have any legal authority to represent this Navy Federal, whoever you're talking about? Do you have the legal authority to represent them? Because if you don't, then I don't need to hear. Do you have the legal authority to represent?
Sir, you need to please let me speak. Every time I begin to talk, you interrupt me and I can't answer your question.
Because you're not answering, you're trying to avoid answering my question.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to tell you what it is, but you keep interrupting me and we're getting nowhere. So if you just give me a moment, I'd let you speak. I know what you're calling for.
You don't know what I'm calling for because I haven't even asked my questions. I've got one of them, ma'am. I have a list of questions. So far, you've answered one of them. You've told me the date that
Can I answer the next question that you asked me?
How much was it sold for? That is the next question. How much did you purchase it for?
The account was charged off at the balance that was owed, and that was $4,913.32.
How much did you purchase? You didn't answer my question. You told me you purchased the account. How much did you?
To that information,
okay, thank you.
Was charged off for what the balance was.
Okay, so okay. But you told me you purchased it. So you're saying they charged it off, or did you purchase it? You can't You can't give false information.
I'm not giving you false information.
So did you purchase it?
We can go to your next question. What's your next question?
Well, now I'm unclear. Did you purchase it, or are you saying it was charged off? Those are two separate things. Either you purchased it, or it was charged off.
Was sold to us.
But you're not privy to how much. Okay. Now,
what? We don't have that information. We don't have to provide that. The account is.
Wait a second, ma'am. Hold on.
The account was due.
You have me named as a lot.
Was charged off.
Okay.
So that is what you owe when your account was delinquent.
What is the date?
I can give you the interest if you're ready for that.
Ma'am, I'm not asking you about interest. Do you have a contract with me for this number 1761?
We don't need a contract, sir. You
okay. Well, excuse me. Wait. You don't need a contract. So you opened up an account with me that I know nothing about.
I did not open an account with you. You're misunderstanding how collections work.
No, I'm not misunderstanding. I'm looking at my credit file and I see an account number here. You're right. So you can't. So you're telling me you didn't open this account with me?
That is our account number.
Then where did you get my information from? Where did you get my information from?
Because if you keep interrupting me, I'm going to disconnect the call. We're not going anywhere.
Ma'am, you know what? I'm already writing a letter to your president and CFO, and I have your information. You've told me you're not a debt collector, which I believe is false, but I'll take that up with the Consumer Fraud Protection Bureau. Do you have any evidence, and can you provide me any proof that you have actually purchased this account, or it has been assigned to you, or that you have any legal authority to represent this so-called original creditor? Do you have any?
Do not represent the original.
Oh, you don't represent the original creditor.
If you listen to me, I will tell you, we do not represent the original creditor. We are our own collection company.
Oh.
The account was sent to us. They have charged it off, and we are now in collection.
Okay, well, but what I'm looking at says I have a debt with your company. And you told me that...
You're in collections. I think you need to research what collections mean, because you're kind of misunderstanding that.
You're saying I'm in collections. I'm in collections for what? You just told me you didn't have any contract with me.
You owe a debt that was with Navy Federal.
Prove that. Where? Give me... Okay, first off...
If you'd like me to prove that, I can send that to you. You have a current mailing address.
You can send what to me? You can. I'm saying. No, I'm saying proof that I have a. I don't know. Whatever you're talking about is not on my credit file. What's on my credit file is that I have a debt with you under this account number, and I'm saying I want to see the contract that I have with you or proof of whatever. If you say you purchased the debt, provide me proof of that. Fax me that information. Show me that it's been assigned to you, or show me something.
Where can I mail that to?
I'll give you a fax. Can you fax it? I'll give you a fax number. You can fax it over, right?
Yeah, because it's your private information, so we can only send that out through mail.
Now, whatever you're sending me supposedly is where you got my private information from. Will you also be sending me any type of assignment or evidence that you've purchased this? Because right now, I don't know how you guys got my private information, because if you're claiming to have got it from somebody that I may or may not have done business with, then that's identity theft because I've never given anybody any information to provide my ID. So I would like to see proof of assignment or your authority to have used my confidential information. That zip code is
We'll send you a bill of sale.
That zip code
We'll
is
send you a bill.
92871. I just want to verify the zip code. Now go ahead. You're saying something about.
We'll send you the information that we have on file.
Where did you get the? Okay, you're saying you got the information. You got my private confidential information, and you opened up an account with it, and you're claiming to have got it from somebody that I never.
Collections, okay? We have the right to have information. When an account is sold to collections, any original creditor, whether it be a credit card, your Best Buy account, anytime you open up an account with somebody or anyone, your account, they have the right.
Are you giving me legal information?
Please let me finish.
Is this legal information, or are you just giving me your opinion?
You need to read any contracts you sign. They have the right to send you to collections.
Is this?
They have the right for your private information is used to be sold to collections to attempt.
Make sure you. I want to see that information. So make sure when you send me this, you send me. You know.
You need to research your contracts then and read any contracts.
Wait a second, ma'am. You're the one in possession of my private information, so you have to.
So we're going to send that to you when we receive that information. It's coming in a plain white envelope. It'll probably be from the Valhalla, New York address. So in the meantime, we're going to put all that request in, and we'll get it sent off to the P.O. Box 417, Placentia, California, 92871.
Right,
okay?
and if you don't include the information about where you guys got my information, I'm putting in a complaint for identity theft with my local police department because you're sending my private confidential information. I will, and I have your name.
We're not in violation of that.
Well, I'm.
Right to collect the debt.
Well, I got.
I can provide you with the information.
I'm not.
That I've told you already in the conversation. So we're going to get that for you.
Well, you told me in that conversation, but I would like to see it in writing because if it's not in writing, then I'm putting in identity theft because you've used my information to open up an account.
We did not use your information again.
Ma'am, you've opened up an account with it.
Where the account started from.
Wait,
we have every right to attempt to collect the debt. I keep telling you that. I don't think you're understanding the whole process.
Right, because you're telling me about legal things, but I don't think you have the authority to make a legal determination about what your rights are as far as.
I don't know what you're hearing from.
You said right. You said you have. Well, you opened up another. Well, I know there's another account open, and right now, if I see that paperwork and it shows where you guys had the authority to use, or somebody gave you the rights to use my private information. But now I have another question. What day what's this original, the so-called original account number, and what day was that account closed?
The original account number is 4220.
Yes.
8891.
42208891. I'm sorry, 42208891.
I'm gonna start over. 4220.
Yes.
8891.
Yes.
8004.
Yes.
That was opened up with Navy 9/1 of 2009. And it was charged off 10/27 of 2010.
9/1/2009, and then you said 10/20. What was it? 10/27.
10/27 2010.
And you opened up your account on 4/30/2012. Purchased it.
It's not. The account was sent to collections 4/30/2012. It was not open. That's.
Ma'am. Okay, then. Okay, if it wasn't open, why is it showing up on my credit file as an open account? Now this is. Okay, wait. You just told me it wasn't open.
We're going to send that in. We're going to get what we need to get to you.
And meanwhile, I'm going to file a complaint to the FTC. And I'm going to file this complaint with the FTC, Danielle, and I'm going to put your name in it because now your information on my credit file says the account's open, and you're just telling me it's not. And that's providing false information, a violation of 15 U.S.C. 1692 Section E, paragraph A. You're misrepresenting the character and the legal status of an account.
I'm not misrepresenting anything.
So is the account open? Wait.
An account with us. The account is sold to collections.
Right, but okay, so did you
continues from the date of purchase, which is the 4/30/2012, as a continuation of the debt that is in.
Okay, so account number 17613943, is it open or is it closed?
That is
Is
When
it,
the accounts are sold to collections, they're
ma'am,
given a different
if
account
it's your
number than
account,
the
it's on my credit file. So is it open or is it closed?
Correct.
Is it open or is it closed?
It is a current delinquent account.
It's
That
a,
is our account number that our
how,
company goes by. We
it is a current,
provide different account number.
explain to me what a current delinquent account is. Is it open or is it closed? Accounts are open or closed. Is the account
This is a
open?
current account that is in collections. The account is not open as in you have a current credit card with this company.
Then why does it show that it's open on my credit file? I have it sitting right here in front of me. Now you're telling me it's not open. It says it has a balance amount, it has a high limit, and it says the account is open. And you're telling me that it's not. So that right there is grounds right there to dispute this false information and this inaccurate information that you're confirming for me. And I have your name and I have a record of this conversation as you do too. So you're telling me the account is closed.
Correct. And
But
I'm not telling you anything different. What I'm trying to explain to you is that the credit card or the loan is closed. Your account is with us as far as it being due for a balance that is owed on the debt. You owe it. The balance that is owed is.
ma'am, right now, everything that you're saying is an allegation and hearsay. The only thing I see in front of me is you guys claim that I have an open account with you, which you're telling me that something is wrong because it's closed.
We're going to validate that information, okay? So just be on the lookout for that when in the mail. So.
Right, and also make sure you tell me how you got my private confidential information and how you're using my social security and my number without, where you get the legal authority to do so, because if not, I am putting in a report for identity theft because you've opened an account with my private information. That account number is 1761-3943. You're telling me the account is closed, but I'm looking here and I see the account is clearly showing it's open on my credit file. If you don't remove it and you don't tell me where you got the authority, because I never opened an account with you.
I tried to explain that to you, and I'm not going to go any further. So we're going to end the conversation and we'll send your validation to you, okay?
If you don't provide me where you got the authority to use my private and confidential information that you've used to open account number 17613943, then I will put in a complaint for identity theft. I will put your name in the affidavit because you've not told me where you got the authority to use my private and confidential information. If you don't send it in the mail with whatever you are sending, I will put in an affidavit for identity fraud, identity theft, and I will put your name in it.
Okay, that's fine. Have a good day then.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Okay. First, I want to let you know that was by far not my best call. I'm not really even proud of that call. It's just the only one that I decided to record. That's one of my first calls. So I was a little nervous and things like that, the same way you will be. But right now, I'm much more precise, much more to the point. I don't spend time arguing and going back and forth with them on trivial things like I did in that call. But either way, it was still a win. And I'll tell you why, because the goal of that call was to get certain omissions and violations of the FDCPA, which would aid in having the derogatory or the negative information removed from the account. So typically after a call like that, I'll go over my notes, specifically the questions I asked and the responses that they gave, and then I'll send a letter out to the CFO of the company, something like this. Dear CFO, I am writing you in regard to your employees' violations of the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act and the numerous false representations made by your employees during my telephone conversation on Tuesday, May whatever, at 2 p.m. I will detail the violations below. Danielle C., ID number 12345, an employee of ABC Collections Company, informed me the above referenced account was closed by the original creditor in November of 2012, but ABC Collections Company is reporting the account as open on my credit profile as of January 2013. By reporting the account as open, you are in violation of 15 U.S.C. 1692E, paragraph 2, subsection A, by falsely characterizing the account as an open account, and 15 U.S.C. 1692E, subsection 8, by communicating credit information which is known to be false, and 15 USC 1692E 10 by using a false representation or deceptive means to collect or attempt to collect any debt. I could also there's also other things I didn't put in there. I just put a few. I could have put in there about the fact that she's saying she didn't have to give me a disclosure because she's in the dispute department. That is also false, and it doesn't hold up pursuant to case laws. Case laws let you know all employees, whether even if FDCPA says whether you're directly or indirectly trying to collect the debt, you are obligated to give the appropriate disclosures. But furthermore, pursuant to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, re-aging of accounts is unlawful and may be considered an unfair, deceptive act and practice under the Federal Trade Commissions Act. I am seeking your cooperation in resolving these matters. Please assign this account to an employee or representative that is familiar with the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act so that our next telephone conversation can lead to an effective resolution. Without your cooperation, I am left with no alternative except to submit my complaint to the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau and the Federal Trade Commissions. Best regards, Tex Masson. So, that's just a side note letter that I send off right in the beginning before I even get started. And that's just so they can know that, okay, this guy means business. That right there in itself, although it's not a formal dispute or a formal request for debt validation, it may in itself be enough to just say, hey, let's get rid of this because this guy is already alleging violations of the FDCPA, which could potentially be a liability for them. So the first thing I'm really doing is I make that telephone call to write down their omissions so I can point out the potential liabilities to them right at the beginning to maybe put a little bit of pressure on them to stop reporting and to remove this derogatory information from my account. After that, I'm going to actually send dispute letters. Again, these people are only trying to collect information and make assumptions. They do not know anything about you except for what is in your file, or their file, excuse me, and whatever you confirm to be true. Therefore, you should not answer any questions for them. They need to answer all the questions. Remember, the law says that the law says what they are required to do as debt collectors. This is why you want to become intimately familiar with the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is your authority over them. You can tell them that what they're required to do for you, and you can tell them that you are not required to give them any personal information. This is your private information that they typically store in their files. So they already have your name, your address, home phone number, work phone number, cell phone, social security number, and the date of birth. So again, to analyze the violations that the lady made on the particular call that I was on, and this is like, again, if you ask the 15 questions that I have on the list, you're going to, it's about 11 questions I have, you're going to have more violations than this. But she made a false misrepresentation because when you look at a collection account, it's going to show up on your credit file as open. Notice she didn't want to admit to the account being open because it's a brand new account with a brand new account number that you never consented to or you never agreed to. So they don't like to word it this way, but they used your information to open an account. So right on the phone, because they're going to try to wiggle out of that, she's falsely characterizing the account. You can't falsely characterize the status of an account. That's a violation of the FDCPA. Look in this document, you'll see specifically which violation it is. Here's another one right here. She claims she didn't have to give a disclosure, but she does. And that's a violation of 15 USC 1692A, paragraph 6. And you can look in this document. It says, the term debt collector means any person who uses any instrumentality of interstate commerce or the mails in any business, the principal purpose of which is the collection of any debts. So she worked for a company named Calvary Port, and their principal purpose is to collect the debt. That's the purpose of the company. So whether she works in the dispute department or the validation department or the collections department, she is responsible, or she is required to give that disclosure. So again, the term debt collector means any person who uses any instrumentality of interstate commerce or the mails in any business whose principal purpose of which is the collection of any debts, or who regularly collects or attempts to collect directly or indirectly debts owed or due or asserted to be owed or due to another. So she was clearly a debt collector in that regard. And I'm finding a lot of them like to allege that because they're in the validation department that they don't have to give you disclosure. That's a violation. And case law supports that. And on a side note, when you read this this PDF, I'm also going to put the link to the Great Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. They have a lot of case law and Supreme Court case law that's in your favor in regard to what these debt collectors can and can't do. She also admits to purchasing the debt, but she also claims it was charged off. So you have, once you understand how charge off works, then you understand that that's a violation of 15 U.S.C. 1692E, paragraph 10, by using a false representation or deceptive means to collect or attempt to collect the debt. And she falsely characterizes the account as open. I'm not going to go through all of these because you can read this, but I mentioned a couple of other things that she did. Probably the dumbest thing that she could have did was at the end of the call. Excuse me, I shouldn't say it's the dumbest thing. She probably should have been a little bit smarter than agreeing to be named in my affidavit of identity theft, because technically that's what it is. Now, let me read through a little bit more of this. What does it mean when they say the account was sold or the account was transferred for collections? No matter what a third-party debt collector tells you about the way they obtained the account, you will find out that in one form or another they broke the law in doing so, and at bare minimum they are going to give you a misrepresentation when you communicate with them about it. If you've read through the FDCPA by now, you know that any deceptive form of communication is a violation. The Federal Trade Commissions Act and the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau are always welcoming reports of unfair deceptive acts and practices, because prosecuting companies is how they get paid, which is $10,000 per violation for them. So you can always use that to your advantage, the ability to be able to report them and to let them know that you will report them if they continue to violate. The letter to the CFO, the one that I kind of just read over, the treasurer, the officer of the debt collector company, is setting them up for real trouble, which increases the likelihood that they will not want to deal with you in the dispute/validation process, which we're about to talk about next. Ideally, one should send such a letter immediately after the phone call, within 24 to 48 hours. And again, here's something else. When they say the account was transferred to us for collections, you should ask, did you purchase the account or was it charged off? And what date was the original account closed, right? Or what day was it charged off? And when you ask that, you also want to know, well, what was the balance on the account on the day that you charged it off? Because then they're going to try to avoid telling you that the balance was zeroed out, right? Just make sure you write all this stuff down. Let's see where we're at. I think I might have to call this the first part of the video, and the rest of this particular lecture will be in part 2. So make sure you check it out, and make sure you visit www.thctrust.org, create an account, log in, and I would really appreciate your support. Join the premium subscription group. Is $16 a month, and you will have access to all the template letters that I use in regard to fixing credit and removing collection accounts and other things that we have yet to discuss. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.